video, I will show you how to call OpenAI services from Fantasia, in particular GPT models, for text completion and chat. Please note that using GPT models with Fantasia has a few considerations to be done, specifically concerning how decisions are made. So in this tutorial, I will simply show how to call OpenAI services, and I will leave it to a future video to get more in depth about how to design dialogue management systems with Fantasia that differentiate between decision making and language generation. So let's jump into Unreal, and as you can see, this is the interface, the blueprint interface, with an OpenAI component. Configuring the OpenAI component is very simple. You simply need to put your OpenAI key here in this field, and you're good to go. The OpenAI component has a getGPT completion function, first of all, where you can put text, stop sequences. Stop sequences in this case are an array of strings. So user and AI are stop sequences for this text generation part. We are using DaVinci 3, limiting the maximum tokens to 1000 and using a temperature. So temperature is a measure of how much freedom the model has to generate language. So 0.6, we leave it quite a good amount of freedom, but not that much, because in this case we only want to use GPT to fluently express something that we have decided before. So in this prompt here, we see that the AI wants to say, do you like thriller as a genre? We already decided what the move should be. We only want to make this sentence a little more fluent and contextualized with respect to what has already been said. So the task for the GPT model is to reformulate this sentence. Don't change its meaning, only its form. Make it sound professional but friendly. If possible, link the sentence to what the user said. So using pronouns and understanding what has already been said. So putting this sentence in the linguistic context is the task that we are using GPT for. So the previous history of this imaginary dialogue is that the user said, I would like you to recommend me a movie for tonight. Based on your preferences, what genre would you like me to suggest? So let's assume that we already decided to first investigate the genre, as it usually happens. The user says, I would like an action movie. And now we want to say, do you like thriller as a genre? And put it in context. Once the GPT answer is ready, this event is fired, and we can print in light blue the GPT response. Now this is the preferred way of working with Fantasia. You take a decision, you generate a sentence, typically a template sentence, and you use GPT models to generate linguistically correct, fluent text, also considering the context in which this text has to appear. But let's assume that you want to use ChatGPT, so the model that is dedicated to chat. In Fantasia, you will find this object, this structure, chat_turn, with which you can build pairs of roles and sentences. So in this case, we are building a turn where the user says, hello, how are you? We add this to a list of chat turns, an array of chat turns, messages, and we call getChatGPT completion, specifying the method, with only this part of the chat. When the answer is ready, you get this incoming ChatGPT response, where you have the response and the role. For now, the role is a string, but it will become an enumerative type listing all the roles that can be expressed by ChatGPT. So we have system, assistant, user, and function. Functions are not yet implemented, they will soon be. So let's print this string and let's see what happens when we want to continue this chat, this imaginary chat. So let's use do once continuation, otherwise this event would keep firing and we would end up in a loop. And let's add the system answer to the history of the messages. ChatGPT usually answers something like, I'm an AI, so if you ask me how are you, then I don't have emotions, and blah blah blah. So we can simply state that the user says, what do you mean? To answer this question, ChatGPT has to be able to consider the context in which we are talking. So it has to consider what has been asked and what the answer was in order to be able to answer the what do you mean question. So we append again this sentence, this turn to the messages, and we again call ChatGPT completion. When we get again the event, we will print the answer, and this part here will not be executed again, so this will end the demonstration. So let's run this and let's see what happens. So the first answer rephrases, do you like thriller? The second part here is the answer to how are you? And the last part here is a deepening and explanation about what ChatGPT means when it says that it doesn't have personal experiences or emotions. So in the first example, it simply rephrased something that we decided to say. The second part answered the how are you question. And the third part answered the what do you mean question by taking into account the context of the previous turns. So as you can see, it's very simple to call OpenAI with FANTASIA. Please consider what I told you in the beginning. Let's keep decisions and language generation as two separate parts when designing dialogue systems with FANTASIA. I will produce a dedicated video about this. In the meantime, you can also refer to the interview with Alexander Erdl on the Neo4j channel. I will put a link in the description if you want to know what the general approach that we have when designing dialogue systems with FANTASIA that we consider. So thank you for listening and have a nice day.